Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tim's News Explosion on this Monday, the 3rd of April, 2023. We are live on YouTube, on the Unshackled YouTube channel, the Tim Wilms D-Live channel, and as always, the Wilms Front Odyssey channel. Entropy is live, where throughout the show, you can send through to myself a direct question, or even better yet, send through a super chat to support this show and also other Unshackled productions. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where on Saturday night the Aston by-election result stunned many political watchers, with the Albanese government winning the seat from the Liberals. The first time a sitting government has won a seat from the opposition in a by-election in over 100 years. This by-election was triggered by the resignation of former government minister, Morrison government minister, I should say, Alan Tudge. So he had obviously had a terrible performance at the Robo-Debt Royal Commission. He was one of the social services ministers who was subpoenaed to testify. And what also didn't help is that his scorned ex-girlfriend lover, who he had the affair with, Rochelle Miller. They both lost their marriages, Alan Tudge and Rochelle Miller, as a result of the affair. She basically spilled the beans to the commission about how they used at one stage the media to dox welfare recipients to try and counter the negative press that the robo-debt, it was called income averaging method, which would turned out to be illegal. In response to those criticism, used the media to dox some welfare recipients. So he decided, Alan Tudge, to retire. He'd been the member for Aston since 2010. His margin was cut. Aston was, for 30 years, has been a safe Liberal seat in Melbourne's outer southeast. And the Victorian Liberal Party decided its administrative committee to pre-select somebody from way outside the area, Roshena Campbell, who you can see her there. You can tell the reason by looking at her gender and skin color, that they chose her because she was a woman of color. She lives in Brunswick with her husband, James Campbell, who's the Herald Sun's national political editor. He's often on Insiders on the ABC and Sky News. So Roshena, she's a City of Melbourne councillor and a barrister. So clearly she was selected because she was mates with a lot of the people high up in the Victorian Liberal Party. And even though she wasn't, well, she was miles away from Melbourne's southeast, they're like, oh, she ticks the diversity boxes. We'll pick her and we'll say she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And this was the result on Saturday night. Both the ABC and Sky News called the result for Labor early, a 6.4% swing to the ALP two-party preferred. The Labor Party, because they're only just coming out of administration after the Adam Samurak branch stacking saga. So Mary Doyle, she lives in neighbouring Deakin, so she's not from the electorate either, but she's from the southeast. She ran in 2022 federal election and shaved Alan Tudge's margin from 10% to 2.8%. And that is quite an incredible swing there. Now, all the other right-wing minor parties did not contest. There was a Libertarian Independent, Mayor Tessa, who got 7% of the vote, and then there was a fusion. It's the Fusion Party is a fusion of left-wing parties. I think it has down here where the it's the Science Party, Pirate Party, Secular Party, a Climate Emergency Party, so a coalition of left-wing parties there. And the fact that the Labor Party outpolled the Liberals on primary, which doesn't happen very often because of the leakage Labor have to the Greens, 40.9%, and Liberals, Roshena Campbell, 39.1%. Now, I had a feeling that Labor, the Albanese government, would win this seat. The reason being is because at the 2022 Victorian state election in November, the Andrews Labor government almost made a clean sweep of Melbourne's central and southeast. Rowville, which is within the federal electorate of Aston, was the only seat that the Liberals retained. And the reason I put it down to is because it's becoming an upper middle class area. They were quite comfortable. People there are working at home during lockdown. And also they liked Dan's suburban rail loop, despite the cost and the fact that it will take 30 years. They vote. There was huge swings out in the east, Melbourne's outer central and southeast there. And this has resulted in, at a federal level now, I'll bring up this. It's an updated map here from the AEC, the metropolitan Melbourne seats. So the Liberals now hold 2 out of 21, now that you can see that somebody scribbled or painted red paint over Aston. And of course, it's also worth reminding people in Victoria now that Dan Andrews' socialist left faction has complete control of the parliamentary party and the party apparatus. Of course, Daniel Andrews was on his secret trade mission to China in the week leading up to the by-election. Now, there is, I think, around 15% ethnic Chinese Australians in Aston. So they got this Chinese language ad beamed to them on Chinese social media with also Labor put on their English posters the menacing Peter Dutton, but this is the Chinese ad that Labor put on social media.
我们对彼得·达顿了解多少？他自己的政党2次拒绝他担任领导人。他试图引进7澳元的鸡皮税。他现在领导着莫里森自由党残余。在 Aston 的补选中，请传达这样一个信息：自由党需要个比彼得·达顿更好的人。由墨尔本澳大利亚工党 C4 授权 438 Docklands Drive, Docklands Vic.
Authorised by C4 Australian Labor Party Melbourne 438 Docklands Drive, Docklands Victoria 3008.
And now, in the aftermath, Peter Dutton, he appeared on stage with Roshena Campbell when she made her concession speech. He was obviously hoping that he would be there to introduce the new member for Aston, but Peter Dutton still fronted up, and he also fronted up on ABC Insiders the next day. But he said, we'll listen to the electorate and we'll take the lessons, but didn't specify what lessons. And they still defended the well, shouldn't be the pre-selection, but the choosing of Roshena Campbell. They said, she's a fantastic candidate. It's not her fault. If she was such a good candidate, then how come she lost? Now, a couple of or you'd call them memes or graphics caught my eye on Twitter, and that is the Izika Twitter account. It's also on Gab. That is the Economic Zone Economic Zone, which previously known as Australia, I think it stands for. But there was this this meme here. Party that keeps losing elections by running women and foreigners says it keeps need to moving to the centre. And this one, Australian Conservatives celebrate another successful electoral loss from running an Indian candidate. And I saw this at the state election because I've moved to the city of Casey, which has a very growing Indian ethnic population. And the Liberal Party think that just by pre-selecting a local Indian from the area, they're also doing this in the east and the west, while in the central East Melbourne, like Box Hill, they pick a Chinese. They think, oh, we'll pick someone who looks like the growing demographic there, and we'll just sit back and let the votes start flowing in. And they all lost. Those electorates still voted for the white Labor candidates. And the thing that the Liberals they're not getting at all is that migrants, as first, second, and third generations, they all vote for the left. And even though they're trying to pander to migrant groups, Indians and Chinese, because they come from socially conservative cultures, this is why they're obviously campaigning many conservatives and the Liberals against the excesses of the LGBT agenda. It's not cutting through all these electorates. They're still voting for the leftist parties. And of course, the Liberal Party, they are basically rubber stamping the mass migration resuming into Australia, or I should say, it's really being turbocharged post-COVID. Now, this is from Macro Business by the unconventional economist, who is Leith Van Onselen, who's one of the few economists who is against mass migration. So there will be, Jim Chalmers has expected there'll be 650,000 migrants this financial year and next, driving a 900,000 jump in number of residents. So net overseas migration this financial year is likely to be 350,000, a 50% rise on what was expected in the October budget. And so Treasurer Jig Rummers says, even with this big bounce in net overseas migration, we still haven't caught up with what we lost in COVID. And that is why it will still take some time to fill the gaps and skill shortages that you're familiar with and that we've talked about on multiple occasions. And so, also Leith says the NAB Bank has blamed the immigration surge for the rental crisis, saying it contributed to tightening in the rental market. Well, you don't say. And yeah, so this is, as Lee said, this is deliberate government policy, and it's bipartisan. Obviously, the Albanese government is resuming it. So they're also listed here is that increasing the permanent humanitarian migrant intake to a record high 195,000 people, increasing the number of hours international students can work. I don't necessarily oppose that, because if you cap international students' work, then they tend to be exploited with underground work. Committing 500 new staff and 42 million of funding to clear visa backlogs there. So net visa arrivals, you can see plummet there, but then the surge there. So the Liberals, by not opposing this, and also by One Nation and the other right-wing parties not opposing mass legal migration. I mean, obviously Australians, they don't like illegal immigration by boat, but they're completely oblivious to all of the government-sanctioned legal migration via plane. Resume the planes is now the official bipartisan government policy. And it is going to lead to the Liberal Party unable to win elections, no matter how much they pander to immigrant groups, to And the thing is that although they may be socially conservative, the first and second generation migrants, their children are indoctrinated by our education system, socialized by our media and entertainment and culture. And so they'll end up being young cultural Marxists like the white Australian children as well. And so there'll just be like what is happening overseas in the blue states in the United States and in the UK by basically not even opposing mass uncontrolled legal immigration. There is not going to be many right-wing governments in the future. Now, Dan Andrews, he arrived back on Saturday, on the day of the by-election, April 1st, didn't take questions from the media about his secretive China trip. He of course, he didn't invite the media, and this was his reason for not inviting the media.
Everyone, I've got to go. Let's be really clear about this. This trip was not about me, and with the greatest of respect, it was not about you. It was about the success of Victoria. The success of Victoria. And we stand by what was a full program, an important program, one where we got a very warm reception, and one where I think we can all have a sense of confidence that goods and services, products and people, those linkages will be even closer. That partnership will be even closer in the years to come.
Just confirming that you didn't, it was your call not to.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, why was that the case? Why do you not think it was appropriate?
Well, again, it was back-to-back meetings, and it was not a meeting, not a trip where we were signing deals. It was not a trip where we were going and visiting all manner of different places.
It's important in terms of the Australian-China relationship.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what we're arguing about here. You didn't come in 2019. You didn't come in 2019.
I wasn't saying political reporter in 2019.
Well, but there were, but yeah, and there were two trips. There were two trips in 2019. The point I'm making is that not every time we've travelled overseas, have the media come with us.
And at that same press conference, of course, Dan Andrews, knowing him, he laid the boot into the Victorian Liberal Party for their loss in Aston. And he called them, well, I won't quote him. I'll just play his words in his own voice.
And whether it's anti-trans, anti-gay, anti-Chinese people, the list goes on and on. The Liberal Party are a nasty, bigoted outfit, and people have worked them out. And that might be why they keep losing. People want politicians who are not focused on these the persecution of trans people. They want politicians who are focused on the cost of living, on skills and training and work, on hospitals, on transport infrastructure, on working hard for working people, not people who are bitterly divided and take their narrow, nasty brand of politics and try and dress that up as a national agenda.
Alluded to this, Premier, but to what extent do you think Peter Dutton's personal brand explained the result in Aston?
That's a matter for him and others to work out. But, of course he'd blame the state division. And if he'd won, well, it would have been all about him, wouldn't it? People see through this as well. But to sit there on Insiders this morning and say that in his judgment, his finely tuned political judgment, that people out in the suburbs, families out in the suburbs, are up and about and are, concerned and fundamentally motivated by issues of transphobia. No, that's not an accurate read. And it just tells you all you need to know. The Liberal Party's politics is all about the Liberal Party.
And of course, Dan Andrews' government celebrated Trans Day of Visibility on March 31st because, of course, transgender people are not visible enough, lighting up Flinders Street Station in the colours of the that's supposed to be the transgender flag there. And of course, he announced a $900,000 grant, you could call it, extra funding to LGBTI helplines to supposedly help them with the trauma of Kelly J. Keen's visit, and the National Socialist Network also being around Victoria's Parliament on the same day there. And there was, of course, the usual inner Melbourne crowd wanting to reclaim the steps of Victoria's Parliament House from the Nazis. And so this is some brief footage of that. And now, as Dan Andrews got one thing right, is that there are way more pressing economic matters than transgenderism and transgender bathrooms and all that sort of issue, because Victoria is nearly broke. And Dan Andrews, he's now finally seeing that for himself. And so at the May state Victorian budget, there is going to be a 10% cut in public service jobs, which is, in my opinion, is the cuts don't go far enough. I mean, clearly they could cut a lot of Dan's own staff. Most of them are a lot of them are social media managers. So obviously Dan Andrews knows that since he's just been re-elected, that he can afford to piss off many of his natural supporters, though the public sector unions, they have said that they're not going to be like just lie down and take this. They're going to oppose it. And the CFMEU, they walked off the Metro Tunnel project on Friday because of a state government inquiry into duck hunting again. So although I definitely think that I'm glad that Dan Andrews is finally addressing the state budget and wanting to cut the size of the Victorian government, but the hands that he's fed for the past 9 years since he became Premier, they are certainly going to bite hard. Obviously, Dan Andrews' strategy was to organize jobs for the people that supported him. We have Victoria's big build, but the cost blowouts continue, and also they are not due to be completed. Metro Tunnel 2025, the North East Link 2028, and also the Melbourne Airport Rail Link 2029. And then you have the first section of the suburban rail loop open in 2035, and the next part not until the 2050s. And we had 2 home builders go under on at the end of last week. The main one was Porter Davis going into complete liquidation. And so that means that many Victorians have half-built homes, and there is now looting of these half-built properties there. It is just an absolute tragedy. It's called the Great Australian Dream home ownership, and of course bringing all of these extra migrants in, where are they going to live? I mean, that is just going to push housing affordability. I know for our Queensland, Brisbane viewers, it is really bad there because of all of the southern lockdown refugees who have moved up there. And Anastasia Palaszczuk, her grand plan to try and solve the housing affordability crisis, rental crisis, is to limit the amount of times that rent can go up. Rent control, of course, never works. It just depresses the availability of housing, has the opposite effect. And the other housing giant, it's now in voluntary administration, is the Lloyd Group. So Dawn says probably looting by unpaid tradies. Heartbreaking. It is all around, and we don't like to see any of that at all in Australia. And now, of course, we have tomorrow the Reserve Bank of Australia meeting. Philip Lowe, he has gone a bit, he's got jelly legs. He's saying, oh, maybe because inflation went down to 6.8% last month, we can maybe ease off on the interest rate front, so you can stop bagging me. And Jim Chalmers, please reappoint me for another term, even though inflation is it's still high. It's not between its 2 and 3% target. So in my opinion, they should raise interest rates again, but they might not have the guts. Then on Wednesday, it is the emergency Liberal Party room meeting. They're going to thrash out their position on The Voice. Because obviously that is going to be the next chance that Australians have to cast a ballot paper. You could call it the Liberal Party's Voice grand finale. Yeah, so we will see what the outcome of that Liberal Party room meeting will they. I doubt they'll universally support the Albanese government's voice. It'd be hard to see them universally opposing it, given that there's so many supporters of the voice in the Liberal Party room, most notably their Shadow Attorney General and Indigenous Affairs spokesman, Julian Leeser. Then, of course, there's the moderates such as Simon Birmingham and Bridget Archer and Andrew Bragg, who want to support the voice. I think that if the voice fails, because Anthony Albanese is pouring so much political capital into it, if the voice fails, then it'll be a huge humiliation for Anthony Albanese, and that might be the turning point where Australians begin to turn against the Albanese government. But the Liberal strategy of just hoping that the Labor government fall apart like they did under Rudd Gillard, that's Peter Dutton's strategy to just pounce when the Labor show inevitably falls apart, and then you do the Tony Abbott strategy. It's because what if Labor they don't fall apart? What if Albanese and Chalmers they manage to keep everything together? Because a lot of the criticism of the Liberals was after the Aston by-election is said, you said what you're against, but how are you going to fix things? And this is why the Republicans did so poorly in the midterms, only just winning the House and failing to win the Senate. They said Biden's bad on inflation, on the economy, but what was their policy to fix it? And so just hoping the other mob, trying to do a Stephen Bradbury, hoping everyone else falls over and so you can win the next election. That is not an election strategy. Now, going up the Murray, where a week after counting, the loss of the Liberal and National parties of government in New South Wales, it now looks like they didn't lose that badly. It wasn't a Minslide, although Chris Minns, Labor's leader, is now Premier. He'll be leading a minority government with 45 seats. The LNP coalition looks like they will pick up a 36 seat. 36. There's 93 seats there, so they only lost 10 seats at the state election now over a week ago. And 3 of those seats they lost to independents, including to one of their own former MPs, Gareth Ward, who they kicked out of the party when he was charged with 2 counts of sexual assault, which Gareth Ward is pleading not guilty to, one against a 17-year-old boy and one against a 27-year-old man. The people of Kiama, which is just south of Wollongong, have re-elected him as an independent, and he was suspended from Parliament by the Perrottet government because of the charges. He appeared in court this week again. It's probably not going to get to trial until later this year, probably maybe next year, but it is quite an extraordinary result that somebody facing, obviously innocent until proven guilty, facing serious sexual assault charges is re-elected. And they can't really suspend Gareth Ward again because it's what the people voted for. I mean, as astonishing as it is, that's what the people voted for. Now, going to the Legislative Council result, the count is very slow. So far, it looks like that Labor will win at least 8, the Liberal and Nationals 6, the Greens 2, and One Nation, which is Mark Latham 1. It still looks like that Robert Borsak, leaders of Shooters for Farmers Party, will likely be re-elected. It's still looking good for the Liberal Democrats, led by former Liberal reform activist John Ruddock, and legalised cannabis, Jeremy Buckingham, returning to the Parliament. He used to be a Green, now looks like returning from the legalised cannabis party, though. Chris Minns, he is promising to freeze One Nation out, and because of Mark Latham's, as it was reported, disgusting, vile, shameful, vulgar, homophobic tweet. And now all of the mainstream media last week, when Mark Latham made this tweet and then deleted it 3 hours later, said it's so disgusting we've chosen not to broadcast it. Well, as you know, I don't believe in censoring the news, no matter how confronting it may be. So this was the tweet that Mark Latham has been cancelled again. I mean, how many times have they tried to cancel Mark Latham? So he was replying to this animal rights activist, Susan Metcalf, who was quoting what Alex Greenwich, the re-elected independent member for Sydney, who before he was elected at a 2012 by-election, Alex Greenwich was the national convener of Australian Marriage Equality. So Susan Metcalf quotes Alex Greenwich calling Mark Latham a disgusting human being, and people who are considering voting for One Nation need to realise they are voting for an extremely hateful and dangerous individual who risks causing a great deal of damage to our state. And Mark Latham replied, disgusting. How does that compare with sticking your dick up a bloke's ass and covering it with shit? Yeah, I do agree. It is a disgusting tweet. And I know that the female members of the Unshackled audience didn't like Mark Latham's language there. So, yeah, that was at... as you can see by the timestamp there, if I bring it up again, it was at 10:13 a.m. on Thursday, March 30th, and so Mark Latham didn't tweet for the rest of the day, but at around 5 o'clock that afternoon, there was a video message put out by Pauline Hanson, condemning Mark Latham's tweet and calling on him to apologise.
I'm responding to the comments made today by Mark Latham on social media. I want you to know that I don't condone them, and neither do my members of Parliament or party associates. I think they are disgusting. I've actually tried to ring Mark a couple of times to no avail, and I have clearly sent a text message to him telling him my views, and also I've asked him to give the people an apology. I will leave it at that. It is now over to Mark to answer the people.
Now, not all One Nation members agreed with Pauline speaking on their behalf. Former One Nation Queensland Senate candidate and LNP federal member for Dawson, George Christensen, posted on his Nation First channels, "I stand with Mark Latham," saying he's done a world of good in New South Wales in standing up for common sense. Yes, there is a matter of a bad taste tweet, but was there any blowback at the comment by another MP that Mark was responding to that called him disgusting? "Civility in politics is a one-way street. As the wolves of council culture howl for his blood, I ask, do you stand with Latham?" And of course, many of the Australian nationalists, they dug up what Pauline Hanson said herself about the gay and lesbian Mardi Gras into, well, it's iconic 1997 60 Minutes interview with Tracy Curo. This is, remember when she first said, "Please explain."
How do you react to the gay Mardi Gras, which is really a celebration of homosexuality?
No, I don't like it. Because it's promoting something, okay, that is not natural.
That's also another one, become another one of her iconic catchphrases. "I don't like it." And now many nationalists suspected that the reason that she came out against Mark's tweet, calling it disgusting and calling on to apologize, is because she has James Ashby as her chief of staff, open homosexual. James Ashby has been with Pauline Hanson ever since she was elected to the Senate in 2016. And of course, if you remember, going back over a decade ago, James Ashby was first in the headlines when he accused the then House Speaker, Peter Slipper, of sexual harassment. Now, Mark Latham, of course, as you would expect, hasn't apologised. Now, of course, at the Unshackled, we decided to run our own poll. Was Mark Latham's tweet beyond the pale? So 17% said yes, 83% said no. So Mark Latham's, Latham, he follows the Trump playbook or mantra, and never apologize, never back down, double down. This is what he said. A defiant Mark Latham on Saturday doubled down on the decision to tweet a homophobic slur about Alex Greenwich, declaring boo-hoo before later taking to Twitter to slam alphabet ideology. He stood by his original tweet, saying that insults can often come back at you harder and truer. And so it quotes Labor's upper house leader, Penny Sharp, saying that she was physically sickened by it, and Equality Australia labelled them disgusting comments unbecoming of a member of Parliament. And so this is also what Latham said when he calls someone disgusting, a disgusting human being for attending a meeting in a church hall. Maybe attention will turn to some of his habits. As for why he deleted the post, Mr. Latham said, Greenwich goes into schools talking to kids about being gay. I didn't want to be accused of anything similar, leaving that kind of content on my socials. And so Mark, he resumed his posting on Twitter late on Friday night, and he said, "I'm mainly saying what normal people know to be the truth. Elites deny this because they are caught up in a weird identity politics cult in which alphabet people are accorded automatic statehood. Just look at the trans shooter in the US. One small example, why has 2GB been overtaken by Cole Sandilands? He's hardly a rocket scientist, but generally well-grounded in social realities. At GB, though, absolutely petrified of alphabet ideology. What about," and says, "same with fading Channel 10, 9, and even The Telegraph under woke Zach McLean. What about Chris Reason at 7, who said it would have been better if I had stayed at home the night of Belfield. Anti-democratic candidates lose the rights to speak to voters in a church hall because of 15 alphabet protesters. Another weak, brainless person petrified by AI, which is alphabet identity. I think what it stands for there. And Mark Latham was also condemned by Sky After Dark, Peter Credlin, her panel of Prue McSween and Tina McQueen said yes, it was appalling, and Tina McQueen said she felt sorry for how it made James Ashby feel. But of course, Sky After Dark's most sanctimonious host, Andrew Bolt, decided that he would cancel Mark Latham again.
Latham this morning put out a tweet so disgusting that even he felt ashamed after a while and eventually deleted it, but much too late. This tweet was so disgusting, so homophobic, and so vile in a pornographic way that I cannot even hint at what he said about a gay politician, Alex Greenwich. But it was the kind of thing a scumbag would write, a drunk one, except that he wrote it not at night, but at 10:30 a.m. this morning. Now, what was going through his mind, I do not know. But not for the first time, I wonder if he has some issue that needs seeing to. Now, Latham seems to have a self-destruct button and is punching it just far too often. Many former colleagues in Labor refused to speak to him after he betrayed them in a seeming rage, betrayed secrets and all sorts of things. There was also the Arbo joke, and there was a fight with a taxi driver whose arm was broken. And now this tweet, which I don't think he'll ever live down. He will be a pariah, and not just here at Sky. I wonder how he'll be able to function effectively as a political leader when he's earned the contempt of so many for his abuse, particularly in the media. And this is a real problem for Pauline Hanson, the national One Nation leader. Latham taints her. She has tried to rein him in, but now this. Does Latham even know that Hanson's closest advisor for years, a really top bloke, is himself gay? Hanson is of course furious. She doesn't trust herself to come on tonight in case she really explodes and make things worse, but she did record this response and sent it to us.
I'm responding to the comments made today by Mark Latham on social media.
We don't need to see the rest of that because it's just a replay of Pauline's triggered statement. But yeah, you saw Bolt was even more uppity than Pauline. I'm a stupid moron says, can you get Mark Latham on your show? I'll certainly reach out to him now since he seems to have been cancelled by everyone again. You'll certainly be welcome on the Unshackled. Lady of Charlotte says that Bolt is such a pearl clutcher. He's as bad as Neil Mitchell now on 3W in Melbourne, who's pearl clutcher as well. There's a super chat over on Entropy from Neil Erickson for $14.88. Australian currency. It says great show. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Now let's turn to the US news. The biggest story still in the US is Donald Trump being indicted by the Soros-backed and funded Manhattan, New York County District Attorney Alvin Bragg. And so the specific charge is that it is a New York statute, a business record statute, which basically it is a false entry in the business records of an enterprise, and this is over the what is termed hush money he paid to porn star Stormy Daniels, who it is it's widely held belief that he had an affair with, though Trump, as I brought to you last week, said that he never liked Horseface, which is their Stormy Daniels on the right there. And now the indictment is sealed, and so we don't know whether it's just a misdemeanor or that Alvin Bragg's trying to go all the way with a felony. If it's a felony charge, then Trump could be imprisoned for a year, we won't know Trump is going to surrender himself in New York to be arraigned, fingerprinted, and get a mugshot, because he knows that that will play into the outrage of his supporters. And of course, there is the Democrats who say nobody is above the law. Well, except us, of course. Bill Clinton, he was never charged with the hush money he paid Paula Jones, who accused him of sexual harassment. Of course, his wife Hillary and the Bidens have gotten away with their dodgy business dealings in China and Ukraine scot-free. Nancy Pelosi has gotten away. Her family, her husband Paul, gotten away with their stock trading there. And this is like the Federal Electoral Commission couldn't find a way to charge him for violating campaign finance laws. Even the Department of Justice, Merrick Garland, even he couldn't find anything. That's why he tried to go for the mishandling classified documents. And Nancy Pelosi, she hilariously tweeted that now Donald Trump will have a chance to prove his innocence, that's not the way it works. Alvin Bragg has to prove that he's guilty. And of course, a grand jury indictment doesn't mean anything, especially in New York, where there's it's Trump derangement syndrome all across the city. The expression is that a prosecutor could get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. Trump, he is obviously, this is galvanized his supporters. He is now well ahead of DeSantis in the hypothetical matchups. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis hasn't declared. He said he wouldn't participate in any extradition, but Trump is going to surrender himself. So we'll see if that happens within the next 24 hours. But could also this be a 4D chess by the Democrats, because they want Trump to be a martyr so that he will win the Republican nomination, and so Biden can beat him in 2024 again. I know that commentators who say if the Democrats, they're not guaranteed to beat Trump again in 2024. They lost in 2016. Well, they made sure in 2020 that they definitely beat Trump. And if Trump is the nominee again against President Joe Biden, then you'll guarantee the Democrats will pull out all stops to make sure that if Trump is the nominee, that Biden wins. And so Trump's the MAGA War Room released this fight on ad on its socials.
Durham probe into the Russia collusion hoax. President Trump has just been impeached on both Article 1 and...
The only president of the United States to be impeached for a second
January
time.
6th committee releasing its final 845-page report.
Former President Donald Trump has been indicted.
Remember this: nothing worth doing ever came easy. Following your convictions means you must be willing to face criticism from those who lack the same courage to do what is right. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider. Embrace that label. Being an outsider is fine. Embrace the label, because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead.
This is a party that wants an outsider badly.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president.
You must keep pushing forward. Never, ever give up. There'll be times in your life you'll want to quit, you'll want to go home. I can't do it. I can't do it. Just never quit. You will build a future where we have the courage to chase our dreams no matter what the cynics and the doubters have to say. you will have the confidence to speak the hopes in your hearts and to express the love that stirs your souls. And you will have the faith to replace a broken establishment with a government that serves and protects the people. But they're not coming after me, they're coming after you. I'm just standing in their way. And I always will stand in their way.
And now Peak Aussie Man says that how the hell could Biden get a second term? Well, he got a first term. And the reason is like I was explaining with Australia at the beginning of the show, the demographic change fueled by mass migration. In the United States, obviously, it's mass illegal migration through the southern border. It is changing the electoral map, the electoral demographics, and so that it is very easy for centre-left parties to keep winning, no matter how bad that they are. Now, of course, the other big story, or should I say tragedy, out of the United States was another school shooting. This time in Nashville, Tennessee, at a Presbyterian Christian school, the Covenant School, by a ex-student, Audrey Hale, who had begun gender transitioning to become a trans man and wanted to be known as Aiden Hale. There were 6 people that Audrey murdered. There were 3 staff members and 3 children, which it's absolutely horrific. But this time, the police, unlike in Uvalde, Texas, took the shooter, or should I say killer murderer, out before there was more innocent lives that were slaughtered. Now, again, this is confronting footage, but I don't believe in censoring the news.
Hey, hold the air. Go, go. There you go, second floor. I don't have a radio closet. Give me enough. No, locked door. Where did they go in? First floor, first floor, first floor. Hold there, y'all. Somebody hold there. Hit that door. Rifle first. Rifle first. Blue, go. Go, 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 go. Go. Move. Move. I'm with you. Go left. Straight, straight. Right here, right here, right here, right here. It's locked. Go. Hit that stair. Hit the stairs. Go. Those stairs. Those stairs. Go. Go, 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 go. Go, 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 go. I got it. Go. Ready? One down. Keep pushing. Go. Shots fired. Shots fired. Shots fired. Move. Right, right, right. Push with LPVO. Push with LPVO. Go right. Move, move. Watch out, watch out. Move. Stop moving! Stop moving! Watch left, watch left. Suspect down, suspect down. Hey, hold the air.
That is absolute bravery, composure, by those police officers there. And one of the children who was murdered, 9-year-old girl, she was the one that pulled the fire alarm that you can hear before she was shot dead. Now, because the shooter was a transgender person, there is, and this reminds me, of course, when there was all these Islamic-inspired terror attacks that the left media were worried about backlash against the Muslim community. Now, this time is that they're worried about backlash against the transgender community. And I saw that Lady of Charlotte mentioned that Madonna is holding a concert in support of the trans community because, of course, this shooting didn't fit the normal narrative that the left likes, that it's a white cis male, as they call it, inspired by toxic masculinity or white supremacy, or was a sovereign citizen, far right patriot. And so this is when it's politically inconvenient to them. They're saying, "Oh, we shouldn't have any backlash against the trans community." Was there any? Were they saying that when Brenton Tarrant murdered 51 Muslims in Christchurch? Was there anyone in the media saying we shouldn't smear all nationalists like this? I'm worried about a backlash against the Australian nationalist community. Of course, another school shooting, which is one of the most horrific mass shootings that continues to occur in the United States. It seems to be that ever since the Columbine high school massacre in 1999, there's just been endless copycats there. And then obviously it reached new tragedy with the Sandy Hook elementary school shooting in 2012. And of course, there's mass shootings elsewhere in the United States, at shopping malls, at gas stations. So far this year, there's 130 mass shootings in the United States. It's a terrible social disease that they have over there. But of course, gun control will not stop it there. Prohibition doesn't work to cure a sickness like this, and only leaves bad guys with guns, as is the case in Chicago. But it's interesting now that the progressive left in the US, they support transgender people arming themselves for protection. And obviously the reason why there was a lot of a lot of focus on the shooting being in Tennessee is because that state had passed a ban on medically gender transitioning children and banned child drag queen shows. And so that was sort of signaling there that, oh, this is what marginalizing groups does. That's what some are saying. And it was at Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks was saying, I'll make an exception. I think trans people should be able to arm themselves. But Second Amendment supporters, they should not now support red flag laws for transgender people, because red flag laws can be used against them, conservatives and nationalists and patriots. So just have no red flag laws. As long as you're not on the FBI radar, because how many of these mass shooters have been on the FBI radar? So obviously this was on Monday last week, and as I mentioned earlier, Trans Day of Visibility was on March the 31st. There were some that were wanting a transgender day of vengeance, and we saw insurrections in the capitals of 5 US states that have passed laws against child drag shows and also medically gender transitioning minors. The first was in Tennessee, where after the mass shooting had occurred. Then there was Oklahoma. Then there was Texas.
Protect trans kids! 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 Protect trans.
And then there was Florida. And then the fifth insurrection into a US state capital by trans activists was in Kentucky, where there was also an LGBTQ shaman. Now, will all of these transurrectionists, will they be imprisoned without trial for a year, like the January 6th protesters who were inside the Capitol? Will all of these be compared with Pearl Harbor, 9/11, the Civil War? Will the LGBTQ shaman, will he be put in solitary confinement and be sentenced to 4 years in prison like the QAnon shaman, Jacob Chansley? Which there is actually good news in this on the plight of Jacob Chansley, QAnon shaman, after he was basically exonerated by Tucker Carlson's footage that was given to him by new House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. He has been released and is now at a halfway house. So not even the Justice Department could justify keeping him in prison. So that is excellent news because he didn't hurt a fly. And so it is great that he seems to be smiling, and certainly we hope that he gets his life back because he was obviously lost for many years when he was discharged from the military. Now let's go over across the Tasman, Trans Tasman, which is what the original Trad Tasman Talk show was called, but it is literally been Trans Tasman in New Zealand ever since the mob in Auckland ran Kelly J. Keane out of the city. and of course had tomato juice thrown on her by this intersex transgender woman, Elena Rubashkin, who was born in Colombia to a Jewish Ukrainian mother, was detained in Hong Kong for 8 months when attending university to study chemistry because of their gender ambiguity, and became a refugee in New Zealand and married a Jewish New Zealander called Itamar. And so this is what Elena said was their reason for pouring tomato juice over Kelly J.
Well, tell me what you did today.
I juice Posy Parker with tomato juice. I dropped a liter of juice on her, and I want her to know that her voice, her words are blood, because they are killing our people. So that tomato juice represents the blood of the people that she's promoting to kill.
Tell me what it was like getting up there, because you had to go quite a long way.
I just came in and started. They asked me if I'm a rainbow. I said no, I'm not. I'm not with all that shit. I went inside. They were not thinking that I am a trans person, because I'm intersex and trans, but they can't tell. So I went there and I sit there. I start chatting with them and like following their, And I literally went inside that little house, and when Posy Parker came, I just took my juice and I dropped it on her.
What did she do?
She opened her mouth like that, like the juice, and all the people that was around her were Jews. And I think right now she's smelling like tomato juice, and she will not forget what happened here. New Zealand needs to stand up in front of the world and say, this is not welcome here. We protect trans people. Trans people in New Zealand are safe. I came here as a refugee from Colombia, and this is my safe space, my safe heaven. I'm not gonna let that be taken away from me, because this is my home. I feel safe here. I want to live here, and I don't want hate, I don't want Nazis, I don't want that here. I want to be happy, because I'm happy with my family.
Elena feels so safe in New Zealand that she had first fled to Sydney and then to New York, though some people said that Elena is not, or Eli, as some call her, is not really in New York. They look like Photoshop photos or old photographs. So Elena has been charged with common assault, and a arrest warrant has been issued. Police went to her apartment. So the reason I'm calling Elena her is because, well, what is it? She was assigned male at birth. She had an intersex condition, but then gender transition. So she's actually made the effort to become a woman. I certainly believe she is a violent woman. She's been charged with a unprovoked assault there. But according to the domestic violence and child protection minister, Greens Marama Davidson, the real violent people in New Zealand are cis white men.
I am a prevention violence minister, and I know who causes violence in the world. It is white cis men. Yeah, wow. That is white cis men.
Okay, but so what is a woman? What is a woman?
So trans are taonga.
What's a woman?
Trans women are women. Te Ao Māori was never so boring as binary. Yes. I am tangata whenua, and I say transphobia is not welcome here.
And the activist who led the mob in Auckland, despite saying he was fearing for his life, Chanel Lau, who, in addition to being a far-left LGBTQ activist, also has anti-white views, blames white colonialism for homophobia in the Pacific Islands. Chanel Lau obviously was born in Fiji, but is a Fijian Indian, but calls himself an Indigenous activist, and also uses they them pronouns, but is clearly 100% male, especially if you've seen any of the photos on his slutty Instagram account, Silky Chenille. So this is him on the bed with the tagline, "I'm ready to be promiscuous." And like that is one of the tamer photos there. Like there's like countless other ones of him in poses in his underwear where you can clearly see that he's male at the top and the bottom as well. And Chenille was given the Kiwi Bank Young New Zealander of the Year award, and got to stand beside the Prime Minister Chris Hipkins. This is Chenille back in 2018, when Chris Hipkins was Education Minister. He was on the Youth Advisory panel doing some ridiculous, I don't know why he's sticking his tongue out like that. And I'll play for you Chenille's acceptance speech. And of course, you're if New Zealanders were already sick of Chenille before he went viral all around the world, they'll certainly be sick of him now, because he is still an annoying victim. He has a victim mindset, forever will, because he says he was subjected to conversion therapy in Fiji, even though he is one of New Zealand's most celebrated young people. Here he is with a chief partner officer at ANZ and managing director at Microsoft New Zealand. Vanessa Sorensen says, "Watch this space. This leader has only just gotten started." So buckle up, New Zealand. You'll be seeing a lot of Silky Chenille in the years to come. But this was his victim-filled acceptance speech.
Oh gosh. Bear with me, people have been trying to kill me this week. It gets tiring growing up the hard way. And being in conversion therapy for all of my childhood, I thought I would never make it out. But in 2014, I moved countries, and that was my lifeline. And I was told that New Zealand is a tolerant country. Well, guess what? I'm tired of being tolerated. Queer people are nothing to tolerate. And I don't want to be accepted either. No one has power over me to accept me. It doesn't matter if you accept me or not. I exist. Trans people exist. And my people, they are human. And there aren't many old trans people like me because they are dead. Maybe it was conversion therapy, or the AIDS pandemic, or the fact that it was a crime to be trans, or hate crimes, or loneliness and depression. I want to be free. Free from discrimination and hatred and this debilitating fear of violence. When we banned conversion therapy, we moved towards that goal. And tonight, I encourage you to be brave enough to keep going in that direction. Thank you all so much.
And notice that he accidentally made Chenille the white power hand sign there. Though you notice in that footage, he quickly changed his hand gesture there. But yes, basically saying, oh, New Zealand is not tolerant enough for me. I want it to be, what is it? Basically the usual thing. It's never enough for the victim industry. Now, one of the rightful critics of Chenille Lull in the New Zealand media is Sean Plunkett of The Platform. He was suspended from Twitter today for supposedly violating the Twitter rules. Now, because he has been in the New Zealand mainstream media for many years, he has a parliamentary press pass. Last year, he asked Jacinda Ardern about the denying entry to Avi Yemeni. Today, on the day that he was banned from Twitter, he asked the new Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins, what should be a basic question, which is the definition of a woman.
I just wanted to ask you, given comments by Keir Starmer and Britain, how do you and how does this government define a woman?
To be honest, Sean, that question's come slightly out of left field for me. Biology, sex, gender. People define themselves. People define their own genders.
Keir Starmer has said that he believes 99.9% of women do not have penises. And I know it's a strange thing for him to say, but given recent events in New Zealand, I'd ask again, how do you define what a woman is?
Well, I think as I've just indicated, I wasn't expecting that question, so it's not something that I've, pre-formulated an answer on. But in terms of gender identity, I think people define their gender identity for themselves.
Self-identification?
Yes.
What about, if you like, an official or a wider societal sense?
Again, I think we have rules in place now. If someone wants to change their gender on their birth certificate, for example, there's a process that they go through in order to do that. I haven't got the process chapter and verse in front of me, but it's available. Anybody can look it up and see what that process is.
Just one follow-up. You described that you thought some of Posey Parker's views were abhorrent. Could you tell us which ones?
I think some of the views being conveyed around the transgender community, some of the sentiment,
her views,
yes, some of the sentiment that she's expressed towards the transgender community is abhorrent in my view. Well, that they shouldn't exist. Up the back.
Even now, left-wing Prime Minister Anthony Albanese knows the definition of a woman: adult human female. And so Chris Hipkins, you saw, basically flatlined there. Much like, our health department head, Professor Brendan Murphy, can't really answer that question either, as Alex Antic found out when he asked him. So yes, that is from the New Zealand horror story, the Freak Show edition. Now let's move back home briefly, because as you know, the Southern Hemisphere winter is coming, and we're being warned, of course, about the twindemic, which of course, COVID, the Albanese government has launched its new booster campaign this weekend, but the flu is now making a comeback this year. Could you believe it? Can you believe it or not? After being absent for 2020 and 2021, made a bit of a comeback last year. But 2023 so far, influenza recorded numbers are 24 times higher than they were at this time last year. And so you have the mainstream media, of course, with their go-to medical experts urging Australians to book in at their local GP and pharmacy for a flu vaccine. This report was from 9 News Melbourne.
Victorians are being urged to roll up their sleeves for a flu shot soon, with more than 3,200 cases of the virus already confirmed in 2023. Health experts have told Emily Rice the infection rates are high for this time of year.
Despite having a mild aversion to needles, 31-year-old Heath has fronted up for his seasonal flu shot.
Not a big fan, so just gonna have to tough it out, brave it out, we'll be right.
Vaccination appointments are booking up fast at national pharmacy chain Chemist Warehouse as influenza starts to spread again.
So what we've seen this year is the incidence of flu has already begun, which is contrary to what we're used to in the past.
In Victoria, there has already been just under 3,200 official influenza cases compared to just 140 in the same period last year.
That does mean that we've got a very significant early start to the season, and could mean that if that continues, we have a very big season this year.
Pharmacist Angela Stathopoulos is leading by example, rolling up her white coat sleeves today too.
I'd encourage everyone to get their flu shot as soon as possible this year.
Leading infectious diseases expert Professor Paul Griffin says some people wrongly believe that getting the flu shot will actually give them influenza.
We know there is absolutely no chance that this vaccine can give you the flu. It contains no live virus.
The 2023 flu vax at most chemists is $20 and cost varies at GPs. For certain groups such as seniors and children under 5, it's free. Side effects from the flu vaccination may include a little bit of soreness at the injection site or even fever, neither of which should last too long. Emily Rice, 9 News.
It's not even free for us healthy adults. Costs at least $20. But of course, for the COVID cultists such as Monique Ryan, they are continuing to push COVID alarmism. Hashtag COVID is not over. Hashtag mask up. Even though they're probably a bit disappointed that the uptick of COVID cases and hospitalizations has not surged into a full wave yet. And so Monique Ryan, in members' statements in Parliament, she made this claim about the number of Australians on ventilators with COVID.
And travel to protect themselves from COVID, but they have no choice about accessing healthcare, where they are now at risk, high risk, of hospital-acquired infections. If you go to hospital for something unrelated to COVID, but you are infected with it while in hospital, your risk of dying from it is 1 in 10. This is more than 50 times the community mortality rate for COVID. It is an unacceptable and unnecessary risk. The COVID pandemic is not over. There are more than 400 Australians on ventilators with COVID today. 40 of them will die from it. On behalf of all vulnerable Australians, I ask the Albanese government to urgently review its public health measures in response and in regard to COVID-19.
400 Australians on ventilators with COVID in Australian hospitals. Now, that was she made that statement on Thursday. The previous week's numbers were 11 COVID, people with COVID on ventilators. So unless I was wondering, did she have some inside information where there'd been some dramatic surge from 11 to 400 on ventilators with COVID? So she was immediately fact-checked on this on social media, and Sky News brought in Dr. Nick Coatsworth, former Commonwealth Chief Medical Officer, to give us the correct updated figure for Friday.
Because Monique Ryan, independent MP Monique Ryan, has claimed 400 Australians at the moment are on ventilators because of COVID. She's also a GP. She's made the claim in the House, and it seems wildly inaccurate. Joining me live is former Deputy Chief Medical Officer and Infectious Diseases Physician Nick Coatsworth. Thanks for your time. I'm not a doctor. I Googled this pretty quickly. Seems a lot lower than 400.
It is a lot lower, Tom, and because we're talking about accuracy, Dr. Ryan's a paediatric neurologist. That's her specialty background. She did say in the House yesterday that 400 Australians were on ventilators for COVID-19. She's actually come out today with a retraction on Twitter and will actually amend. It's only recently, in the past hour or so, I think, which I think is generally a good thing. I think our MPs should own their errors if they make them, but it is important.
What's the real number?
The real number today is 8. There are actually 400 Australians on ventilators for any reason, right. And there's only 8 who are on there for COVID-19.
Oh, so close there, Monique Ryan. And so she hasn't deleted the video, but said she issued a correction in a tweet reply saying there are 400 Australians ventilated today, but only less than 10 have COVID. I'll amend Hansard. Doesn't change the concerning stats, ARIA Hospital acquired infections and their mortality. Yes, so close with your figures again, Monique Ryan. And also last week in Canberra was the Clean Air Forum. So the COVID cultists, because most Australians don't want to wear masks forever, they have now turned to wanting to spend billions of dollars retrofitting public buildings, school-age care facilities with HEPA filters, air purifiers, and this was their gathering in Canberra there. Of course, they still wear their masks. Of course, Victoria's Chief Health Officer, Brett Sutton, is there with his mask, and Dr. Nick Coatsworth also had a good reply to them. He said, today in Parliament, a group of academic scientists, doctors who are seeking to overregulate indoor air standards in Australia at the cost of billions of dollars to the Australian community, instantly termed the Clean Air Forum. They intend wholesale changes to building codes. Honestly, this is to reduce transmission of COVID, but is there evidence to substantiate these changes? Scant real-world evidence and none of the quality that would justify such a public health intervention. This group is not independent. There are individuals who directly benefit from this action, be it through academic prestige, funding, or profit. And Paul Kelly, our Chief Medical Officer, addressed the group, said, we need to constantly ask ourselves, where is the evidence that whatever we are proposing actually works? What will represent the best value for money? But their response is to say that, oh, if you don't want to spend these billions, you're for dirty indoor air, because how could anyone be against clean indoor air? So that's their new frontier there. But of course, it's not cheap, and a lot of them are rent seekers as well. Now, I'm well into overtime here, so I will just go through some of the international news. And Scotland now has a new First Minister to replace Nicola Sturgeon. And so the Scottish National Party membership elected 52 to 48 Humza Yousaf, who is Scotland's first Muslim and non-white First Minister, who is of Pakistani origin, and of course joins the growing list of South Asian, Indian, subcontinent leaders now leading various governments in the UK. There's obviously Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of the UK, of Indian origin and is a Hindu. Sadiq Khan, London Mayor, who is a Muslim, and also the Scottish Labour leader, Anas Sawar, is also a Pakistani Muslim there. So Australia's future is already in the leadership in the UK. So it seems that if the British people want a white man running the UK at the next general election, they'll have to vote for Labour's Keir Starmer. Also, there was a bad result for the socialists in Finland with their party hard prime minister there, Social Democrat prime minister. As we can see here, Sanna Marin, she has lost. So the centre-right National Coalition Party will be in power there. So Finland is joining NATO, and the new Prime Minister, Petteri Orpo, will continue Finnish membership, Finland's membership application for NATO. But there was another bad election result in Berlin due to a lack of participation in Berlin's climate neutrality by 2030 referendum, with only 18% of people voting for this climate neutrality. Only 442,000 just over that amount were cast, which is below the 608,000 votes needed to pass the measure there. And so it's a massive blow for the Fridays for Future last generation movement in Germany. So yes, they, as you can see, I'm not sure if that's they're upset at the result or upset about something else there. So that brings me to the end of Tim's News Explosion for another week. There will be no show on Easter Monday next weekend because I am going to Sydney for the Easter long weekend. I'll be getting a bit of a break, and I know that a lot of you will be as well. The next show, if it is not in a fortnight's, it is scheduled to be in a fortnight's time. It might be closer depending what is in the news, but the next Tim's News Explosion will be the 100th show, 100th News Explosion. So if there's anything special that you'd like me to do to commemorate the 100th News Explosion, let me know either in the live chat or in the Unshackled or Wilmsfront Telegram chats. That's where you can have updates about upcoming shows and news articles that we publish at theunshackled.net. I'm also active on Gab, Twitter, Minds, MeWe, Locals, Parler, and Getter. The report from Tiger Mount with Richard Wollstonecroft will also be taking a break over Easter as well. But we will be pumping out news articles because news never stops. But there will definitely be, I can just tell, after Easter, I'll probably go even to more overtime. But all of you stick around, even though I go well over the hour that I plan every week. Thank you, everyone, again for watching. For your contributions and opinions as well. You make this show you make this show really extra enjoyable for me as well. I love the interaction between us all. So everyone have a happy Easter, and I will see you on the other side. Good night, everybody. Stay safe, stay sane, stay normal, stay happy, stay rational, and also, yeah, just stay, I would say now say, stay temperature controlled, because we are now, it's the end of daylight savings now in southeastern Australia. So definitely we've got hot and cold days. So make sure you prepare for the weather. Good night, everybody.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.